Hello beautiful people, my name is Vendi and this is my And I Darken Readathon vlog. It is almost 7 a.m. here on the east coast of the United States, which means it's almost time for me to dive right into And I Darken by Kirsten White. I'm going to be reading it for 24 hours, so from 7 a.m. this morning to 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm hosting this read along with Lou over at Books Are a Way of Life on YouTube, whose channel I'll have linked in the description box below. And we're doing it with a couple other friends that we've made right here on BookTube, which I think is just really cool. This video's not going to be up until the readathon is long over, but if you check out hashtag on Twitter BOOKBAEREADATHON, you'll be able to find all of the backlog of our tweets and stuff about it. I should probably stop filming and start reading, because there's just about 1 minute left to go until the official start time, and we're doing a reading sprint right away, so see you later, guys. So we've just finished the first reading sprint of 30 minutes, and I'm about 52-ish pages into And I Darken, and I'm going to take a little break to make myself some pancakes for breakfast. So as it turns out, no pancakes for me, because I just remembered that I promised Lou that there would be a scene of me eating cereal in this vlog somewhere, so Lou, don't say I never did anything for you. So, if you're following us on Twitter, then you know that we've started to incorporate some challenges into this read-along, and one of them is to make pancakes that look like the little sword and rose motif that is on the US cover. Those of you not in the know, that looks like this. It's a pretty simple design. I think Lotta would approve of anything with a Kodiak bear on it as its logo, so I'm going to use this mix to make my pancakes. Hello friends, I am back from the gym. I got some reading done on the way there and back, so I'm just over 100 pages now, and God, I love it so much. Lotta and Radu's characterization, like from the get-go, was just so good, and I already love them both. But now it is pancake time. I had my batter chilling and I put it in this little container with a lip so it's easier to pour, and let's go down here. Here's my station, my frying pan, the butter I will be using to fry it with, my batter, or some of it, and my book jacket for reference. Let's see how this goes, yeah? So I'll have the cover up in the corner over there so you can see what I'm doing, but here it goes. So there's a hilt and a knife. Oh damn. Well, that just didn't go very well. And then there's the circle of the flower in the middle. I thought that chilling the pancake batter would help keep it in one piece, and that's clearly not gone as well as I thought. And there we have it. The dagger and rose. Like, oh, it kind of looks like a planet with a ring around it, like Saturn, sort of. I'm gonna try again. Attempt number 2 is somehow even less safe for work than attempt number 1, so I'm gonna call it a day on this. Good. I tried, and therefore no one can criticize me. So maybe third time is the charm. We will see after the flip. You know what? I'm not even mad at that. See, you've got like the spiky bit, and that's the knife, and then the flower bit, which is that weird circle. So listen, I don't know about you, but I think I did a really good job. And you know what? If I put this butter knife here, I mean, it's identical. It's the same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and say I nailed this one. I'm back in the flow of reading, and I'm about 150 pages in, and I'm really liking it so far. The political intrigue is much stronger than I originally thought it would be, and that's always a plus if you know my reading taste. One thing that is a little weird, and it's not about the story at all, it's about my copy of the book, is that some of the pages are like, this one's like really bad. There's like ink splatter on them, and it looks really cool, but I don't know why that happened. So if any of you have any idea why that happened, please let me know. It's about noon now, so roundabouts now is my lunchtime, but I think I'm gonna read for another 50 or so pages. I think I'll hit the 200 mark before I stuff my face. Hello friends, so the boy and I are going to Essex, to the beach, to have some fun. Oh my goodness. And I'm bringing this with me, so I will probably be reading on the beach, despite it being kind of cold for April. Stay tuned. decided to engage in a tactical retreat. Yeah, I'll probably do some reading there. Got like 150-ish pages to go. It's a really good time. We just had dinner at, oh, it's too shiny, at Moe's. Hot take, it is better than Chipotle. I think I'm using that right. And now we're going home. I have about 60 pages of this book left, and it's been a little over 12 hours. Lou and I were thinking about cutting it down to a 12-hour readathon, but that's not going to happen. I've had much too busy a day, and I think it's been absolutely delightful. I've had a really good time, and at this point, I just kind of can't wait to get home and curl up on my couch next to my favorite person in the whole world, Marco, and just read my book. I've returned home. It is kind of late. I'm gonna finish this book, and I'll do my quick review on it probably tomorrow because I'm very sleepy and I need natural lighting for filming to work, so see you then. It is just after 6 o'clock in the morning. I've done some braids to help keep my hair out of the way, and then I gave up for the other side because I don't want to run out of time before I do our final challenge for this readathon, which was to recreate the war paint that Lotta has on in the UK version of Darken. I'm going to have the picture of it up in that corner so you can see. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this book, and I'm going to consider this a successful 24-hour Book Bay read-along day. Yeah. So I look a damn mess, but one, what else is new? And two, I think I'm channeling my inner Lotta, and if you don't think she would look a damn mess with any sort of war paint on, then you're wrong. Speaking of Lotta, I think it's time that I give you my review of Darken by Kirsten White. I'm going to keep it spoiler-free, so in case you didn't participate in the Book Bay Readathon with us and you haven't read it yet. So as is my habit when reviewing books, I'm going to start off with talking about the characters. Characters were, I think, where this book really shone. Lotta, Radu, and Mehmed, our main three characters, are all really vivid and three-dimensional. The relationships that they form and the motivations that each one of them has separate from the motivations of the other two felt very realistic and contributed greatly to both moving the plot forward and helping them all grow as people. I'm sorry, I'm freaking myself out every time I look at my viewfinder. Lotta and Radu in particular were very interesting for me to read because they were siblings, so they had that additional dynamic to work through. I loved how angry and volatile and impulsive Lotta was because it very much went against what women were supposed to do and allowed to do, really, at the time and place that she was alive. And I like that Radu allowed himself to be a more soft and conniving boy rather than a guns-a-blazing rage master. They both sort of subverted what was expected of their gender roles, and I thought that that was a really brilliantly done inversion. But I love that by the end, at least, neither one of them was considered weak or lesser for having done so. They both acknowledged that their chosen paths had drawbacks and that their strengths better complemented each other than worked against each other or contrasted each other. I thought that was a really interesting turn for their dynamic to take. Mehmed was also interesting, but I found him kind of annoying for a great deal of Darken. I very much buy his imperious, entitled way of thinking because I'm assuming that's just sort of how life works when you're the son of a sultan and then you become a sultan. Entitlement is sort of key to fulfilling the role and keeping the power that you've got. I didn't like how inconstant a lover he was to Lotta. I know it's definitely a cultural difference that I'm just less okay with, but the idea of having multiple wives just doesn't jive with me, especially if the girl that you claim to love is not comfortable with that. There's definitely ways to do healthy polyamory. Lotta and Mehmed's relationship is not that way. I suppose that was a spoiler, I'm sorry. In addition to that the love triangle, while it was a really interesting take on the love triangle, and I'd never seen it done this way before, I felt was a little misguided, right? There's one coupling that can't work because of one of the character's sexualities, and I don't know, I feel like it's just setting up the queer character for failure, and that makes me really upset. Like, I'm tired of the gay person falls for a straight person and then it's a big old tragedy trope. I'm tired of it. So while it was really interesting to see that dynamic form and the loyalties and the ties that formed and broke because of it, I'm not so sure that I agree with the principle of the matter. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's it. As far as character, let's move on to the world and the world building. Darken is, I think, meticulously researched. It is a historical retelling, just gender bent. When you're working with an actual real history, you don't really have the luxury of creating new rules. You have to actually find out how things were. Otherwise, things are going to be anachronistic and the story is just going to fall flat. So there's drawbacks and there's affordances that writing a history versus a fantasy, for example, give you. And I think Kirsten White used them incredibly. I think that with the richness of the history that she was writing about, so the Ottoman Empire and its eventual rise and just massive spreading into Eastern Europe and beyond. It's a fascinating time period, and I think Kirsten White kind of did it justice. I loved the setting descriptions. I loved Wallachia, which is how I've been pronouncing it. It's probably completely wrong, where Lada and Radu are from. I loved seeing it from Lada's point of view because she's really in love with this place more than she's ever expressed any caring for a person. I think it's very telling of her character that she feels more in love with her home, and she considers her home to very much be rooted in a place rather than any one person. Conversely, I really loved all the descriptions of the more Middle Eastern side of the Ottoman Empire. I loved the description of the food. I loved, more than anything, the descriptions of Islam. There were so many varied opinions on Islam in this book. Specifically, Lada and Radu's views of it contrasted greatly. But the character that really fell in love with Islam was so devoted to it. The descriptions of the call to prayer and the mosques were written with such an odd reverence, I think, is the only way that I can describe it. It made it beautiful. Not that Islam isn't already beautiful, but Darken, I think, in its descriptions of Islam, could maybe convey some of that beauty to somebody who'd never really experienced it or seen it or heard it for themselves. I think it's incredibly valuable as far as that goes. Of course, I am not Muslim, so perhaps my opinion on it isn't the one you should listen to, but from an outsider's perspective, I think the description of Islam was beautiful in a way that depictions of Islam generally are not in the media. I really enjoyed it. I already briefly touched on, when talking about relationships, the harem that the Sultan has. While I generally disagree with the idea of that on principle, I think it was handled decently. I don't want to say well. Most of the women that we actually got to talk to were from the harem, but they were all very multivalent and unique from one another, and I'm glad that it wasn't just depicted as a gathering of homogenous women who exist for the sexual pleasure of one man. And I'm also glad that the potential misogyny of the situation was very much called out. Like, there's a scene where Lada is speaking to the Sultan, asking him, do you ever think about their pleasure? Do you ever think about what it means to be a woman in this scenario? And I thought that that was really important and necessary. I'm not sure how it would have been received historically speaking, but considering this is a book released in modern day, I think it was an important note to at least slip in there. As far as the plot, I'm fairly familiar with the time period that Darken takes place in. I know the story of Vlad the Impaler. I definitely know at least some Ottoman history, particularly concerning Mehmed the Conqueror, but with the obsession with Constantinople and one of the main characters being named Mehmed, on a grander scale, there can be no plot twists because I've opened a history book in my life. On a minor scale, from like the day-to-day sort of things, it was a little less easy to see what was coming, but I don't think that this book's strengths lie in its plot. It's very much a character-driven story, and it's rather slow. The descriptions of the world and the descriptions of the characters and the character growth definitely take a front seat, and what that means is even when there is like a great battle, like there's several sieges that occur in this, you don't really get to see much action. You get action for about a paragraph or two, and then it's back to the internal monologue of Lada or Radu. And I think, considering the time period and considering that having some action scenes would have been a possibility, I would have liked to see that. I assume that that happens a little bit in the sequels because Lada is now, well, a thing happens at the end of this, and my beautiful bloodthirsty baby Lada is now perhaps more empowered than she was at the start of Darken, and I'm really excited about that. So I will be continuing with the series. I think my main issue with Darken is I went into it with too many expectations, and that seems to be my main issue going into many books that are slightly disappointing to me. I thought it would be more action-packed. I expected the misogyny because, for obvious reasons, the historical context. I didn't expect it to be subverted the way it was, which made me really happy. The character of Huma and the immense strength that she gets, even though she's basically confined to the harem wing of the palace, is phenomenal. I think she's one of the strongest characters we read about. But overall, once I got over the shock of, oh, there's not going to be a battle every 10 pages, and when the battles do appear, they're not going to be that long. Once I sort of resigned myself to the fact that it was going to be more of a character exploration story than anything else, I really began to enjoy Darken, and I ultimately gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Do I wash it off before or after I take some bookstagram pictures? I'm gonna wash it off now. It's time to go to the gym, and I would freak out a lot of people like this. And it's just about 7 o'clock, so that makes this round of the BOOKBAEREADATHon officially over. Thank you to everyone who participated in BOOKBAEREADATHon. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you guys did too. And a big special thank you to my co-host Lou over at Books Are a Way of Life. I'll have her channel linked below, and her vlog will probably be coming up around about the same time as mine is. So pals, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you liked me, maybe consider subscribing to this channel. But until then, that's it for me. I'm gonna have some breakfast and go to the gym. Ooh. Goodbye.